This steel plant, which has been operating in Europe for more than a century, was set to close when it experienced significant losses. To purchase this, the United States paid $33 million. A steel plant in Europe, after 9 operational years. In addition to failing to assist the steel factory, the United States accrued extra debt. Out of desperation, the steel factory was eventually sold by the US for $1. But China paid $47 million to purchase such a useless steel factory. The United States was astonished by China's choice, and many individuals at the time had trouble comprehending China's strategy. Many European media outlets consider China's purchase of the steel mill to be a highly foolish move that would get China firmly involved. So why is China investing in a failing steel plant? How is the steel mill now progressing? Before we go on, subscribe to this channel to watch about the most shocking and amazing world projects. Ready? Let's begin. Huge as early as 1913, Serbia created a steel-type pillar business. It was a competing steel factory with the name SMED. The Revo steel plant smelter has a long, illustrious history and was formerly Serbia's source of national pride. It was the biggest steel plant in Serbia at its zenith. 40% of the smelting Evo's fiscal revenue is contributed by, possessed over 5,000 workers. The steel plant that competes with the smelter has been doing well even after the First and Second World Wars. Later, as technology developed quickly, the difference between SMED, a competing steel factory, and the most technologically advanced steel plants in the world has been closing. Additionally to the increasingly ferocious rivalry on the global steel market, competitor steel factory SMED's production tools and technology were dated. After all, considering the inadequate managerial conditions, steel plants at Smelter Revo lost money every year. Also, production significantly decreased. Finally, a competing steel plant declared in 2000 to cement. Along with bankruptcy, over a century of grandeur came to an end. A huge steel plant that fails but still has a lot of worth, you know. Therefore, the United States purchased the steel plant for $33 million when the competing steel facility for the smelter filed for bankruptcy. American businesses have done so for a while, like to buy international properties, especially real industries, with U.S. cash. The United States wants to reopen the steel mill and modernize it with its cutting-edge technologies so that it can increase its own revenue. The purchase of steel mills in the United States, however, is more akin to hoarding, where items are held until the correct price is reached before being discarded. However, in terms of commerce, American businesses might not be the best at it. They continued to use the conventional production method after purchasing the steel mill. The equipment and management system had not been updated either. The debt of SMED, a competing steel plant, has gotten worse every year after 9 years of operation in the United States. The United States had to close the steel factory in order to avoid debts and preserve the employment arrangement in the factory. Later on, from the initial purchase of $33 million to the final selling of $1, the SMED, a competing steel plant, was returned to Serbia. The United States made a number of investments in the SMED terrible steel plant over the course of 9 years in addition to losing $33 million there. All investors at the time about made us unhappy. This corporation believed that its demise was imminent and that no one would be eager to take over this disaster. After all, everyone who was wealthy and entrepreneurial feared making the same mistakes the United States had. But in 2016, this steel mill, which has been shut down numerous times, is now operational. 2016 April. For the right to purchase this shuttered steel factory, a Chinese steel business by the name of Hagen was prepared to pay a premium price of $47 million. The United States was immediately astonished by China's choice at the moment. Many European media outlets made comments about China at the same time, feeling that this was a very poor choice. In reality, I believe that many individuals struggle to comprehend China's strategy. Why then is China purchasing a failed steel plant for $47 million? To be certain, before proceeding with the acquisition, the Chinese corporation had previously performed an adequate amount of study on the SMED, which is a competing steel plant. Following that, the acquisition was successful and finished. In an effort to salvage the steel mill, China promptly established a smart arrival steel plant working group and raced to Serbia to reform the steel plant. China was the first country in the world to implement a significant number of cutting-edge technical devices and to enhance the steel manufacturing process. This has the potential to not only raise the manufacturing capacity, but also cut down on some of the costs. But how can we increase the product quality at the steel mills so that we can produce steel that is of a higher quality? It doesn't take long for plant to transform losses into earnings, is the most pressing issue confronting China today. A time before China gained control of the competing steel factory and smelter, the workforce at this steel plant was in the thousands. In this scenario, global corporations will be forced to let go of a significant percentage of their staff in the interest of achieving financial success as quickly as possible, leaving behind only staff who are capable of achieving the set production targets. On the other hand, following the complete acquisition on the part of China, only 9 Chinese technicians were stationed in the factory for management, but the personnel of the original steel factory were not brought over from the old factory, providing a greater degree of manufacturing independence to the factory. The total absence of layoffs. After 2 years of operation in China, the model that was applied by Chinese enterprises has ultimately been met with positive feedback from the government as well as the people of Serbia. In 2018, smelter licenses were canceled at the steel mill, which then set a new record for maximum production in the past 105 years, generating 1.77 million tons of material in total. While this is going on, a competitor steel plant known as SMED brought in as much as $1 billion in direct revenue every year, becoming Serbia's top export-earning enterprise. After a relatively little period of time pertaining to operating, China has single-handedly saved a steel plant that was on the verge of going out of business altogether from the brink of extinction. China was hailed by the president of Serbia as a miraculous occurrence that took place in his country. It has also been stated by several regional media outlets that China had rescued the SMET, a competitor steel factory which has contributed to the region's increased economic development. The regional cities were responsible for the creation of a significant number of jobs and provided a reliable income for a number of the local residents. Since the year 2022, SMET, the annual production capacity of a competing steel plant, has increased to more than 2.2 million tons, and it has achieved the highest level of revenue it has ever achieved. In 2022, steel production at the smelter-level steel plant is expected to reach 1.48 million tons per year, with 80% of that total being sold to countries within the EU, so occupying the markets of all 27 EU members. In addition to being one of the most competitive enterprises on the European steel market, this smelting Revo steel facility, which has been experiencing stagnation for a number of years now, has also been shut down. In light of the current state of the world crisis, the action taken by China illustrates one of the fundamental tenets that guide their dealings in commercial matters involving other countries. That is, cooperation with a win-win outcome. China has inked economic cooperation agreements with a large number of countries as part of its leading role in the One Belt, One Road initiative. These accords have brought dividends to more than just China, but also to the improvement of the lives of citizens in other nations. It's possible that the Americans would not have been able to fathom the possibility that a steel mill that, in their opinion, had no future would be purchased by China, breathe new life into the company, and propel it to the forefront of global competition. The People's Republic of China is frequently helpful to Serbia, and the level of diplomacy that exists between the two nations is always rising to new heights. I am of the opinion that in the future, there will be increased cooperation between two nations so that both sides can gain something from the other and move closer to a situation in which everyone comes out ahead. Share your opinion in comments. Also, click on this video to watch about another shocking project.